Picture this. You are standing in a public square so large in Iran, so perfectly proportioned, so extraordinarily beautiful that your brain briefly refuses to accept it is real. The tiles are a shade of blue that has no name in English. The architecture surrounding you on all four sides was built 400 years ago, and it is more beautiful than almost anything built in the 400 years since. A stranger walks up to you, smiles, and asks where you are from. When you tell them, their face lights up. They say welcome. They mean it completely. They invite you to their home for dinner. You just arrived in Iran 3 hours ago. Everything you think you know about this country is wrong. And the truth is so much more extraordinary than anything you have been told that by the end of this video, you will be genuinely angry at every news channel, every politician, and every lazy headline that spent decades hiding the real Iran from you. Let us start with the thing that stops every first-time visitor completely. Iran is jaw-droppingly, unreasonably, almost unfairly beautiful, not in a postcard way. In a way that makes you feel something shift inside you when you see it in person. The Naqshi Jahan Square in Isfahan was built in 1602 and is one of the largest public squares in the world. UNESCO called it one of the outstanding manifestations of human architectural achievement. It is surrounded on all four sides by buildings of such extraordinary quality. The Shah Mosque in Iran, the Ali Kapu Palace, the Sheikh Lotfallah Mosque, that's standing in the center and turning slowly in a full circle feels like being inside a painting that the greatest artists in history collaborated on over several lifetimes. The Sheikh Lotfallah Mosque has a dome that changes color throughout the day. At sunrise it is cream. By midday it turns pink. At sunset it glows a deep amber gold. There is no artificial light involved. It is entirely the result of the specific tile work and the specific angle of the sun. Iranian craftsmen in the 17th century built a building that performs a color show every single day using nothing but mathematics, geometry, and extraordinary skill. Shiraz, the city of poets, roses, and gardens, contains the tomb of Hafez, one of the greatest poets in human history, in a garden so serene and so beautiful that Iranians visit it the way other cultures visit cathedrals. They bring his poetry book. They open it randomly for guidance the way others consult scripture. Hafez has been dead for 600 years and Iranians still go to talk to him in his garden. That is what a poet means in Persian culture. Now here is the fact that stops most Americans completely. Rumi, whose poetry is currently the best-selling poetry in the United States, was Persian. The poet whose words appear on greeting cards, on Instagram posts, on the walls of yoga studios across America, in the speeches of presidents and the captions of teenagers, was Iranian. His full name was Jalal ad-Din Muhammad Rumi, and he was born in what is now Afghanistan to a Persian-speaking family and wrote in Persian. America's favorite poet is Iranian. This fact has been sitting quietly in plain sight for years. Iran also gave the world Omar Khayyam, mathematician, astronomer, and poet whose Rubaiyat has been continuously in print in English since 1859, Ferdowsi, whose Shahnameh, the Book of Kings, is one of the longest poems ever written by a single person and is considered the foundation of the Persian language and identity. Hafez, whose ghazals are considered by many scholars to be the peak of human lyric poetry. Iran's literary tradition is one of the richest in human history. The average American viewer may have a Rumi quote on their wall without knowing they are quoting an Iranian. Here is something that will completely reframe how you see Iran. Iran has ski resorts, real ones. The Dizan and Tachel ski resorts in the Alborz Mountains outside Tehran are internationally attended facilities where young Iranians ski on weekends, drink hot chocolate in mountain lodges, and take selfies on the slopes exactly as young people do in Colorado or the Swiss Alps. Tachel is accessible by a gondola from within Tehran city limits. You can take the Tehran metro, board a gondola, and be skiing on a mountain within an hour from inside the capital city of Iran. Iran has a modern, efficient metro system in Tehran that moves millions of people every day. Iran has shopping malls, coffee shops, universities where more than 50% of students are women, thriving art scenes, film industries producing movies that win awards at Cannes and Venice, and a restaurant culture in Tehran that serious food writers have described as one of the most underrated in the world. The Iran of daily lived reality looks almost nothing like the Iran of Western news coverage. The gap between these two things is one of the most significant information failures of the last several decades. Let us talk about Iranian food. Because Iranian food is one of the great undiscovered cuisines of the world for most, Western audiences, and that is a genuine tragedy that needs correcting immediately. Iranian cuisine is built on a philosophy of balance, between sweet and sour, between rich and delicate, between the depth of slow cooking and the brightness of fresh herbs. A Persian dining table is not a table with one dish. It is a landscape. Rice prepared with a technique called tadik, where the bottom layer is deliberately crisped into a golden crust that is considered the most prized part of the meal, is central to almost every Iranian meal. Families negotiate over the tadik. Guests are offered it as an honor. A perfect tadik is a matter of genuine pride. Ghormeh sabzi, a slow-cooked stew of herbs, kidney beans, and lamb with dried limes, has been eaten in Persia for over 2,000 years. It is deeply complex, deeply savory, and deeply personal to every Iranian family that makes it. Because every family's recipe is slightly different, and every family believes theirs is definitively correct. Fasenjam, a stew of walnuts and pomegranate molasses with chicken or duck, is a dish with no real equivalent in any other cuisine. Rich, tart, sweet, and deeply Persian in a way that cannot be explained until you taste it. Iranian saffron is considered the finest in the world, and Iran produces approximately 90% of the global saffron supply. The saffron ice cream sold on the streets of Isfahan, stretchy, intensely flavored, served with frozen cream and pistachios, is one of those eating experiences that people describe for years afterward. Street food in Iran is a world of its own. Ash reshta, a thick noodle soup. Dizzy, a lamb stew served in a stone pot. Kebabs of a quality and variety that would silence any argument about where the world's greatest kebab tradition lives. Now here is the human story that changes everything. Iran has one of the youngest and most educated populations in the Middle East. Approximately 60% of Iranians are under 30 years old. Iranian universities produce more science and engineering graduates per year than most European countries. Iranian women, contrary to almost every assumption a Western viewer brings to this topic, are among the most educated in the region. Iran has more female university graduates than male ones. The literacy rate for young Iranian women approaches 100%. These young Iranians are watching the same shows, following the same music, debating the same questions about identity and meaning and future that young people everywhere are wrestling with. They use VPNs to access the global internet. They follow international fashion, international film, international culture. They have enormous dreams and enormous frustrations and enormous complexity that a single story about Iran cannot contain. The concept of tariff, Iran's elaborate system of cultural courtesy and hospitality, means that when an Iranian invites you somewhere, offers you something, or welcomes you into their space, the generosity is real and it runs deep. Iranian hospitality is not a performance for tourists. It is a value so embedded in Persian culture that violating it would cause genuine personal shame. Visitors to Iran consistently describe the hospitality of ordinary Iranians as one of the most powerful and unexpected experiences of their lives. People who, when expecting hostility, found themselves being fed, guided, and cared for by strangers who asked for nothing in return except the pleasure of the company. Here is the fact that makes every viewer stop and reconsider. Iran has the largest Jewish community in the Middle East outside of Israel. A country that Western media frequently presents in the context of conflict with Israel has maintained a continuous Jewish community for over 2,500 years. Iranian Jews have their own synagogues, their own cultural institutions, their own schools, and their own reserved seat in the Iranian parliament, a parliamentary seat legally guaranteed by the Iranian constitution specifically for Jewish representation. Iranian Jews who have been asked about this by journalists have consistently said that they are Iranian first, and that their community has been part of this land since before Islam, before Christianity, and before most of the world's current nations existed. Iran also has the largest Zoroastrian community in the world outside of India. Zoroastrianism, one of the oldest religions on earth and the faith of the ancient Persian Empire, still has practicing communities in Iran, maintaining temples and traditions that are over 3,000 years old. The eternal flame at the Yazd fire temple has reportedly been burning continuously for over 1,500 years. A flame that was burning before Islam existed. Before the Prophet Muhammad was born, before the Arab conquest of Persia changed everything, and it is still burning today in Iran. Iran invented things the world uses every day without knowing their origin. The wind catcher, a passive cooling system built into traditional, Persian architecture that uses wind and geometry to cool buildings without any electricity was invented in Persia thousands of years ago, and is now being studied by modern architects and engineers as a sustainable cooling solution for a warming world. Backgammon in its current form was developed in Persia. The game of polo originated in Persia. The concept of a walled garden paradise, from which the English word paradise itself derives, from the Persian word paradisa, is a Persian invention. The Persian postal system established under the Achaemenid Empire in the 5th century BCE was the most sophisticated communication network in the ancient world. A relay system of mounted couriers covering thousands of kilometers that historians consider a direct ancestor of every postal and courier system that came after it. Herodotus described it with admiration. It is the origin of the phrase that appears on the New York General Post Office. Neither snow nor rain nor heat nor gloom of night stays these couriers. That quote is about the Persian Postal Service. It is on an American government building. Almost nobody knows this. Now let us be honest about the real Iran, because honest content requires acknowledging complexity rather than presenting only one side. Iran operates under a political system that restricts freedoms that Western visitors take for granted. Press freedom is severely limited. Internet access is filtered and restricted. Political dissent carries serious consequences. The protests that swept Iran in 2022 following the death of Mahsa Amini revealed the depth of frustration among young Iranians, particularly young women with restrictions on personal freedom that they are willing to risk enormous personal cost to challenge. These realities are part of Iran's story and they deserve honest acknowledgement. Women visiting Iran are legally required to wear a hijab in public spaces. This is a non-negotiable legal requirement, not a social suggestion. Dress codes in public are enforced. Alcohol is prohibited. Public behavior between unmarried couples is legally restricted. These are realities of daily life in Iran that visitors need to understand and respect before arrival. The gap between the Iranian government and the Iranian people is one of the most important things to understand about this country. The warmth, the hospitality, the curiosity, the openness that visitors consistently experience from ordinary Iranians exists alongside a political reality that many of those same Iranians find deeply frustrating. Iran is not its government. No country is only its government. But Iran's government shapes the daily experience of its people in ways that matter and cannot be dismissed. Here is the final truth about Iran that brings everything together. Persia, because that is what Iran was called for most of its history and what its people still call their culture, is one of the oldest, richest, and most continuously influential civilizations in human history. At its peak, the Achaemenid Persian Empire was the largest empire the world had ever seen, stretching from Greece to India, from Egypt to Central Asia, governing over 40% of the world's population at the time. The administrative, legal, and cultural innovations of that empire shaped every civilization that came after it, including Greece, Rome, and the Islamic caliphates that eventually transformed Persia itself. 2,500 years of continuous civilization. Poetry that the whole world quotes without knowing its source. Food that has been refined for millennia. Hospitality so deeply cultural it has its own name. Architecture that changes color with the sun. A young population dreaming of a future their country has not yet built for them. Ancient flames still burning. Sky resorts above one of the most sanctioned cities on earth. Iran is not what you were told it was. It was never that simple, and now you know it. If this video showed you an Iran you never knew existed, subscribe to Untold Facts. Because the world is full of countries hiding behind the story the headlines tell about them. And every single one of those countries deserves to be seen as it actually is.